Good afternoon, everyone. It looks like we still have a couple people logging on, so we'll wait until 2 o'clock to get started. So it is 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Qgiv webinar. I'm so happy that you could join us today. We have a very exciting topic to discuss, the impact of recurring giving and how to keep 80% of your donors. So before we get started, for those unfamiliar with Qgiv, we are an online fundraising platform that makes it easy for nonprofits of all sizes to raise more money online. We have solutions for every nonprofit, including year-round fundraising tools, text giving, peer-to-peer fundraising, silent auction tools, and much more. So a few house notes before we begin. As you can see, we've changed our format from a GoToMeeting webinar to a Zoom webinar. So your chat box is actually down below now. So we are recording this webinar. Please, we will send you a follow-up after the session is complete. As I mentioned before, the chat box is below now. So please feel free to ask any questions there. We'll try to answer them in the Q&A section at the end of the presentation. And if you have a Twitter, please share your highlights and takeaways with the hashtag QGivWebinar, and make sure to follow us at Qgiv. So a little bit about myself before we begin. My name is Justin Cook. I am the product marketing manager here at Qgiv. I started here a little over 2.5 years ago as the digital marketing manager and was actually recently promoted to the product marketing manager. My expertise is in digital marketing, such as paid advertising and SEO, and providing the best user experience for both potential and current clients. I enjoy volunteering, and I actually head up our volunteering program here at Qgiv. Unfortunately, with COVID, it's put a large constraint on our volunteering, and I really do look forward to getting back to it once everything kind of normalizes. And I have 5 animals, so I apologize in advance if they start making noise. My friends call it my zoo. Between the 3 dogs and 2 cats, I never have a very quiet moment here in the house. So 2020 was quite a year, wasn't it? Felt like the world was on fire. There was a lot going on, and a lot of organizations needed to adjust to a lot of changes in a very short amount of time. And really, to be quite honest, it was amazing to see how all of the organizations, including yours, was able to adjust despite all of the craziness going on. And the pandemic really brought hard times financially across the country. But what's fascinating is that despite this hardship, donors were still looking to help organizations that they support. In fact, that we see that the mean gift increased to $133.31 in 2020, which is up from $127 in 2019. And from our own Abby Jarvis, Jarvis's Navigating the Unknown, which takes a deep dive into how current events impacted organizations throughout the country, we found that a few segments did really well and sustained or even raised more during the pandemic, including human services, pets and animal welfare, health services, religious organizations. And we saw that some organizations had a really tough year last year, including youth development, and arts, culture, and humanities organizations. So our main goal here today is to discuss how organizations that did well in 2020 build on their successes and cultivate new donors. And for organizations that had a tough year, how can you tap into your donor base to help drive support during these tough times? We'll take a look at how your organization can reduce donor friction, which is to say that how can we keep donors engaged without hindering or confusing them during the donation process? And how can we draw attention to recurring gifts and ultimately build that trust to donors upgrading? Recurring giving. So according to a NextAfter study, despite the importance of recurring donations, only 10% of nonprofits said that they let donors know they could upgrade their gift to a recurring gift, which is a huge surprise to me. We know donors are willing to give, especially when it's related to current events, but why not ask to upgrade their donation? Here are a few reasons why we should be focusing our attention on recurring gifts during the donation process. The first reason, recurring donors tend to stay longer than their one-time donor counterparts. On average, recurring donors are twice as likely to support their favorite nonprofit beyond 1 year. We also see that monthly donors will stick around 80% of the time. That means the time, effort, and money you put into attracting donors will pay off for far longer if the donors you attract make recurring gifts. And studies even show that after 5 years, retention rates are 95%. Reason number two is because recurring donors give more, plain and simple. Recurring donors' lifetime value is much higher compared to their one-time donor counterparts. And over the course of a year, recurring donors give 42% more than one-time donors. And recurring donors give 5.4 times more than one-time donors over their lifetime. So let's take an example like this. So let's say donor A gives a one-time gift of $100. And donor B sets up a recurring gift for $12 for 12 months. So over the course of that year, your one-time donor would give you $100, whereas your recurring giver would give you $142. So with all things staying the same, over 5 years, your one-time donor would give you $500 and your recurring donor would give you $710. And over 10 years, your one-time would give you $1,000 and your recurring would give you $1,420. So again, that's in a perfect world where your one-time donor always remembers to give to you on a yearly basis and your recurring donor is giving to you on a frequency. But overall, we do see that recurring giver gifts are 42% more, give 42% more. But there's also other things to consider here, such as the intangibles. Recurring donors interact with your organization more, meaning they stay engaged and updated with your organization, which means that they're more likely to keep giving and maybe even getting more involved with your organization. So let's look at what we'll cover here today. We're going to look at how other organizations are successfully using recurring giving and how they draw attention to their recurring giving programs. With each example, we'll have a takeaway you can apply to your donation form and a tip for you how to use Qgiv's tools. So some important questions we want to answer today. How can you proactively reach out to donors to let them know you offer recurring gifts? How can you show donors recurring gifts on your donation form and the impact of each amount? And how can you keep current recurring donors? So let's start with the first one. Let's start with tips for asking for recurring gifts. Tip number one, send a dedicated appeal or ask. Let donors know you're looking for recurring donations. People are far less likely to make a donation if you don't ask them to, even if the option is on your donation form. One way that you can accomplish this is sending a dedicated appeal through direct mail, email, or social posts, and get specific about why they should upgrade. Donors want to know how their donation is making an impact, especially if they're committing to a recurring donation. Another important element to highlight here is the visual impact. Showing who is being helped helps your donors make the connection with real-world examples. Another tactic that we find very helpful here is getting those recurring gifts is to create a special group for sustaining donors, and with its own name, of course. In this example here, donors can join a group called Helping Up Heroes, who are a compassionate group of friends. Offering this as a perk is effective because it plays on donors' desire to be an insider, to be part of a community that's working together to make the world a better place. There's also a sense of exclusivity, which can be really fun for people. Tip number two, offer incentives for recurring donors. if you may want to include other incentives on top of being in the special group. This could be something like a special newsletter, a piece of downloadable content, to something such as an invitation to a donor appreciation event or merchandise branded by your organization. There's a ton of room for you to get creative here that fits in your nonprofit's brand and within your budget. What this also does is these incentives keep current donors involved with their organization, and it shows them that you appreciate their support. And these incentives may even encourage new donors to join. Tip number 3, explain why someone should make a recurring gift. Whether you choose to offer incentives or not, it is important to tell donors clearly why they should make a recurring gift instead of a one-time gift. Will they be able to accomplish more? Will they be sponsoring a child? How will their gift make a bigger difference for your organization? And making a case for recurring support is very important. So make sure that you include this detail within your appeals. And going back to what we were discussing earlier, show the impact in appeals, on donation forms, on receipts. Help donors understand who they are helping and what their donation will accomplish. And you can do this through images, videos, or text, and use it in various places as we've been discussing. So let's take a look at a recurring donation appeal example. So a great example of this is Rescue Ministries' appeal during their Giving Tuesday campaign. They added an impact statement at the top of their appeal and included why donors should give, who it impacts, and where to get started. This helps donors make the connection between your organization and the real world impact that the donation has. For example, as you can see here, you can provide a meal and hope and care packages for just $30. Your Get to Give today provides a hot, nutritious meal and hope and care packages complete with a hygiene kit, socks and gloves, and warm shelter. This is very important for donors to understand the tangible impact that they're having for your organization. You can also see that under the Donate Monthly section here, they added a brief description that reiterates that statement impact that we just discussed and the impact of what that ongoing support will have. And another element that they included that was really awesome is this greatest impact text. This is just another subtle way for your organizations to let donors know how they can make the most impact with their donation. So let's move on to the next step, which is to optimize your donation form for recurring gifts. Tip number 1, please don't default to recurring gifts. This makes donors feel like you're being sneaky or trying to trick them into giving more than once, which can put them off making a gift at all. The exception may be if you create a donation form for a specific appeal, if you send out an email asking specifically for monthly gifts. It's probably okay to default to the monthly gifts on your donation form. Just use your best judgment here. Another good thing here is that you want to make it really easy to upgrade. The easier it is, the more likely donors will make a recurring gift. And this reduces the donor friction that they can have on their donation form. And also include subtle reminders throughout the donation process of how donors can make a greater impact with their donation. So let's take a look at that first one. Let's make it easy to upgrade. You can do this in 2 ways. You can add recurring donation options on your primary donation form, or you can create a donation form that uses specifically recurring gifts for your appeals. Or you can do both, like in this example here. Qgiv forms have a tab layout, which makes it easy for donors to switch between one-time and ongoing. Also included is multiple reminders throughout the donation journey to encourage upgrading. The ongoing tab is present throughout the process. You can also include what's called a recurring upgrade nudge, which is a subtle reminder to tell donors how they can make a greater impact. And you can customize this text as well. So here we have multiply your impact and make it monthly. And you can add a recurring upgrade prompt to the end of the donation process before donors complete their one-time gift. This modal is a great way to ask donors one last time before they complete their donation. And if they decide to upgrade or not, it's easy for them to complete their donation. Another example for how to draw attention to your recurring gifts are subtle reminders. This is another great example of this. This organization got really creative, and this is actually this is actually a handwritten note for their customized nudge. You can also see that the organization changed their ongoing text here to monthly donation. So Kara here, how do we add our donation amounts to the ongoing tab? So the option was within the Qgiv dashboard itself. You just enable recurring donations, and that'll bring up several different options throughout. That'll bring up the different options for the recurring donations, including if you want to create a giving plan, which we'll go over a little bit later. If you want to add donation amount, donation images to that, and you can actually add a description. So tip number 2, use design elements to draw attention to your recurring options. So drawing attention to your recurring options is really simple with Qgiv forms, and it's a great way to highlight your different options that you have. So on your landing page, you can add a banner image and a sentence or two about the significance of recurring gifts. And your goal here is to let donors know why and how they can make that kind of gift. You can also go all out like this organization did and build a beautiful custom form with images with a brief description of what that donation amount accomplishes. And as we discussed previously, you can also use recurring nudges and prompts to draw attention to your recurring gift programs. So let's take a look at a few examples of how you can accomplish this through Qgiv. So here we have Green City Marketing made their options very clear in their banner. They added an impact statement at the top of the banner here. They added dollar amount tied to each donation, and they added a brief description of what each donation accomplishes. So for example, $57 here will honor GMC's 57 sustainable growers and producers with a $1 vendor gift. What this does, again, it goes back to what we were talking about, is you need to provide that tangible element for, oh, sorry, my cat knocked down. This provides back a tangible thing for your donors to latch onto and how they're making an impact for your organization. The next is images tied to donation amounts. So for example, Paz de Cristo added images to their form to show how donors can make an impact. One important thing that they used here is the human element, which is photos of people smiling. And they added a brief description for the donation amount. So this helps tie back the donation back to something tangible, as we've been talking about. And these images are showing the impact, which is very important for your donors and helping them bridge that gap between just making a donation to understanding exactly how they're making an impact at your organization. And as we've been discussing here before, recurring upgrade prompts are an excellent way to make one final ask before a donor completes a gift. This text is completely customizable, so you can use this area to reiterate your recurring donation message. The text on the button also reflects to update their giving frequency as well as their giving amount. And if donors decide that they don't want to upgrade, it's really easy for them to select no thanks here. And if they do select yes, then it will automatically upgrade their gift to recurring. So tip number 3, offer giving plans. With giving plans, donors can choose how and when they want to donate. You can do this in 2 ways. The first one is create giving plans tied to specific campaigns. So these are plans your organization creates, and you can set specific donation amounts and frequencies. And this is how you would add a donation image as well as that text that we were discussing before. You can also offer custom plans so donors can choose how much and how often they give to your organization. So for this option, you'll want to enable multiple billing options so donors can choose the frequency in which they give. So they can choose weekly, every 2 weeks, monthly, once a quarter, or once a year. You're going to want to offer your donors that option. I'd also recommend letting donors set the start and end dates for their gift, which just allows them to choose the time frame that is right for them to give to your organization. So let's dive into what that looks like. So creating a giving plan makes it really easy for your donors to select a predefined plan set by your organization. So if you're running a specific campaign to raise funds, this is a great way to show that impact and ask for recurring gifts tied to that campaign. So donors will be able to select which option suits them best. And I do again suggest that you add images and text to your giving plans to help donors understand the impact that they are making. And for allowing donors to create custom plans, If donors decide that they would like to create their own plan, it's really easy for them to get set up. So first, they would just select this create your own. Then they choose their frequency. And as we discussed before, if you enable those multiple billing options, they can choose between weekly, every other week, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. And then they can even set their own start and end dates that works best for them. And as you can see here at the bottom, our donation forms update based on what the donor selects. So in this example, the donor is giving $50 every 2 weeks. So the purpose here is to provide donors the freedom to donate how and when they want, which makes it more likely that they will donate to your organization. So let's move on to tips for keeping your recurring donors. Now that we have all of these great new donors, let's have a plan in place to retain, upgrade, and then build upon those relationships. So tip number 1, include special recurring language in your receipts. So once your donors have set up their gift, it's time to start cultivating that relationship. Recurring donors are more likely to stick around, but that doesn't mean that you should ignore them once they've given. So one great first step towards retention is building a receipt, especially for your recurring donors. And if you're using Qgiv, you can actually set up 2 different emails within the system itself. So one that goes out to the donor when they first set up that gift, and another one that goes out each time that their monthly donation is processed. And in your receipt, make sure to include a personalized salutation, thank you message, and an impact statement. And if you can, follow up with other thank you messages, such as through email, social, or phone call. So building receipts in Qgiv is super easy. Our what you see is what you get, or WYSIWYG for short editor, makes it super easy to customize the different language that you put in here, and you can add what's called conditional content based on your organization's needs. So this is what will help you personalize your receipts to your donors and provide the best possible experience. So tip number 2, segment communications and periodically update sustaining donors on what they're achieving. So as a digital marketing professional, I'm a huge proponent of segmenting communication to different donors. So if you ask someone who's already a recurring donor to make a new gift, they feel like you don't know that they've been actively donating and can lead to more donor friction. So segmenting donor lists will make your communications much more effective. If you send out an appeal that recognizes they're already an active supporter and asks for additional help getting through an exceptional circumstance, they'll be more likely to give above and beyond what they're already giving. So this segmentation will also help you send recurring donors periodic updates about what they're achieving with their donations. These donors are trusting you with regular donations over longer periods of time. So they're highly invested in your work, and tell them what their investment is doing. Again, it goes back to what we're talking about, providing that tangible element and keeping them invested in your organization. And segmentation is a great way to do that, to send personalized communications to those folks. Segmentation also opens the door for you to occasionally invite sustaining donors to increase the size or frequency of their gifts. This could be something like asking a $20 a month donor to bump it up to $25 or $30, or you can ask a quarterly donor if they consider giving every month. I wouldn't do this too regularly, but keep it in mind. In the Qgiv system, we have several reports that you can run so that you can see how many new donors are in the door, recurring donors, at-risk donors, and lapsed donors, which will help you segment your donor lists. Tip number 3, build an outreach plan for lapsed donors or canceled cards. So that same NextAfter study that found that 47% of nonprofits never made an attempt to retain a recurring donor after a credit card was canceled. And this is a huge miss. Take some time to put together a plan for reaching recurring donors who have lapsed. In the current Qgiv system, you can actually set up automated emails that go out to donors when they're nearing the end of the time period they set up for their recurring gift, or emails that go out if the card a donor is using for a gift is expiring or was canceled. You can also try calling recurring donors with lapsing gifts personally to ask if they'd like to renew their gift or use a different payment method. And in that same NextAfter study, they found that calling to ask donors if they are willing to renew their gift is a great way for you to personalize that outreach. The only thing is that you want to make sure that you actually have already asked them for their phone number. You don't want to go around and Google their phone number, because then you'll turn them off to your organization in general. So let's take a look at how you can do some of these things with Qgiv. Here at Qgiv, we offer two different types of forms. So the first one is our multi-step forms. These help break up large donation forms into smaller steps as to not overwhelm the donor. So if you're looking for a lot of information, you have a lot of custom fields that you would like to collect from your donor base, then using the multi-step form is the best way for you to represent that information and not overwhelm those donors on something like a single step form. And we also have single step forms, which can be used when you only have a few options on your donation form so that donors can streamline the process and get through setting up their donation and putting in their billing information as well. So recurring options are available on both the multi-step and the single step forms. Your organization will be able to create giving plans and add images tied to these plans on both options. You can also allow donors to create their own giving plan through the multi-step and single step forms. And the text for recurring tab, upgrade nudge, and the upgrade modal is also customizable as well. With recurring gifts receipts, so once you've enabled recurring options on your form, it's time to build those receipts. So in the receipting area of your Qgiv account, you can set up special email receipts for recurring donors, as we've discussed previously. So make these receipts more relevant by using our conditional content tool to add special language about the specifics of each gift. So if your donor gave to a specific restriction or fund that you have, add a couple of sentences about how their gift will make a difference to that program. You can make these receipts even more effective by adding photos that make donors feel great about their gift and linking them to the other pages where they can learn more about what their gift will support. You'll also notice that you'll want to update these periodically. You could build the best ever receipt, but it'll get stale after a while if donors are consistently receiving that same email over and over and over again. It'll stop being very special to them. Even something as simple as swapping out one photo or rewording a sentence can make a huge impact. So how can you use the Qgiv system to retain, cultivate, and wow your recurring donors? We can also help you do this. You can pull a list of recurring donors, which is really helpful if you're doing some personal outreach to those supporters. If you're using a CRM, you can easily update your donor records to reflect their level of involvement, or you can use an email integration to send emails to your sustaining donors. These two tools make it easier to segment your emails and make them more relevant to your donors. Send updates, mention their loyalty, and generally make them feel like they're doing something amazing by supporting your organization. So here are some tips on how you can even raise more with the Qgiv platform. Use recurring giving and text fundraising. So if you have a text donate keyword associated with your form, text donors will be able to set up recurring gifts too. When they text 50155 and indicate how much they want to give, they'll be able to choose the recurring options you've enabled on your form. So this will just, when they text the number, it will drop them on your donation form, and you'll have the same tab layout that we have for the desktop version on the mobile version. And they can easily switch between those options, and it will automatically adjust based on which donation amount they select, and then they can choose their frequency and so on and so forth. And enabling recurring gifts on your peer-to-peer form is also really handy. And you can add these to any types of events. So racing events, your board campaigns, do-it-yourself fundraising events. I mean, anything really. I mean, you can get really creative about these, especially in the virtual environment where we're seeing a lot more creative avenues for events coming out. Recurring gifts are a great way to offer those on your peer-to-peer forms and really capture your donors into upgrading their donation. So that was a lot of information, and we know. So here are a couple of takeaways from today. So recurring donors are 80% more likely to stick around. So it's very important that you try to upgrade your one-time donors and make them into, and have them upgrade and use those different design elements that we talked about. They also give 5.4 times more than their one-time donor counterparts. When building your forms, make sure to enable your recurring options and prompts. So these are really easy. Once you enable the recurring options, you'll see all those. You'll see the recurring nudge upgrade, and you'll also see the recurring upgrade prompt show up within your dashboard. Don't default to recurring. As we talked about before, we're trying to reduce donor friction, and we don't want to turn away our one-time donors if we are defaulting to recurring because they think it's sneaky and it's underhanded tactics, and we would rather just talk to them in a more, in our storytelling and have them upgrade naturally rather than default. Create specific asks for recurring gifts and reinforce them on your form. So again, this goes back to you'll want to send dedicated appeals about recurring gifts. You want to educate your different donors on what those gifts will accomplish. And then you'll also want to have specific asks for your recurring gifts because that will make a greater impact on what those donors are inevitably giving to your organization. And make sure to tie those back to tangible elements to your organization. I know that it can be a little bit difficult for service-related organizations to provide that tangible element, but you will always have something, but being able to figure out what that tangible element is and tying it back is a great way to show your donors that it's worthwhile to upgrade their donation to a recurring gift. I think I saw a couple of examples from JA programs where they used real life images of the kids that they're supporting and then discussed what those programs do and how those affect those kids in the long run. So that would be a great way for service organizations to provide that tangible element and take a photo of the real life examples of where you're impacting and then try to tie that back for your donors so that they understand what they're doing for you. And last, use reports and integrations to cultivate and retain those donors. Like I said, I'm a huge proponent of segmentation and being able to tailor your messages to different types of audiences. And the best way to do that is using your reports and your integrations. So you can integrate with different email. We have a ton of different email integrations and a ton of different CRM integrations for you to get that donor information over and so that you can start sending out those types of communications. So if you are already a Qgiv customer, you can email us at support@qgiv.com. We can walk you through how to set up these recurring gifts on your forms and answer any additional questions that you may have. We can even walk you through like customizing the different upgrade modals or the recurring upgrade nudge, things like that. Just let us know if you need any help and we'll be glad to help you out there. If you're not already a Qgiv client and you would like to learn more, you can go ahead and contact us at qgiv.com. And if you have any other questions about best practices, you can also visit our blog at Qgiv.